Now, Lewis, very interesting football club.
Yeah.
Done things differently. Very interesting setup.
Done.
We've been talking about back Patrick Marber joined us on the show. Playwright and actor who, when he was involved on the board, which I think was a very similar time to our next guest, Karen Dobre. She was on the board of the club. She's now told her story. My story is a feminist on a football club board. Karen Dobre. Good afternoon, Karen.
Hello, Karen.
Hello, so happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Oh, you're really welcome.
That you do go back to those Patrick Marber days, don't you? Which is quite a long time ago, isn't it?
Well, my husband was one of the 6 guys, including Patrick, who mutualised the club back in 2009-10 when it was on the brink of financial ruin. Mm-hmm. So I do in that sense, but I didn't actually volunteer there and get very involved until 2017 when the club introduced gender equality to football by paying and valuing the women the same as the men.
You weren't a football fan, were you, at all? So what kind of drew you into it?
I really didn't like football at all before 2017. I basically thought it was a space for men, and I'd grown up in, I guess, the period of football hooliganism, really, in the 80s, 70s, 80s, and I grew up near Wembley, and I couldn't get on the tube, if there were lots of football fans there, and I felt quite threatened by them. And I'd been to a football match when I was younger because my cousin Gary played for Brentford, and I went to a match there, and it was quite... it was quite threatening. It wasn't a safe space for a teenage girl. And all I saw on the back pages of newspapers or on the telly were men playing football. Mm-hmm. So I just assumed that it was only wags, that were the kind of accessories to the main event that was women's place in football. And I didn't know that women played football. But in 2016, Charlie, my husband, who was still on the board, said to me, what would you say if we decided to pay the women the same as the men? And I'm afraid to say I didn't even know that women were playing there. So I said I'd say what? And then I'd say, how come you don't? So I got a crash course really in sexism in football. And I went to watch the women. I thought they were absolutely amazing. It was not my idea of what I thought a football match was. It was safe. It was relaxed. You could have a cup of tea. You could have a chat. And changed my mind completely. Became a big fan. Eventually got elected onto the board.
The thing about that, having gone to women's games at the WSL level, is that is the same across the board. It isn't just the same if you go down to Lewis, maybe in the sort of third tier. It is like that. It's a very different atmosphere completely.
Well, it's one of inclusion. It's one of inclusion and equity and sort of almost more freeing for people to be themselves.
I think so. I mean, I've actually just got back from Basel where I saw the Lionesses, win the Euros. And even there, with all it was amazing. But even there, with all those people in town, like you just kept bumping into people and just having a cup of tea with them or, sharing the joy, really. We were chanting on the trams there on the way to the match. And it just everyone, just so joyous. It was like being at a festival.
Yeah.
It was that kind of feeling.
I mean, the thing you've worked on a football club board, so you know about the finances of football clubs and the market forces, and you were able to do that at Lewis. But it would be very difficult to do that at Manchester City and at Liverpool and at Arsenal because ultimately it comes down to market forces. I don't doubt for a moment if Arsenal's women are regularly drawing in 60,000 fans. That would be reflected in the salaries. I mean, as it is, from a marketing and promotional point of view, all those Lionesses are earning a good living. Maybe not as much as they should be from the team, but they're certainly earning a lot from their sort of notoriety and their brilliance, really.
Yeah, I think you make a really good point. It's true, like what Lewis has done would be really hard for a big Premier League club to do, it's just like not really possible. But what I would say about that is we did something quite radical back in 2017. But what we also did was things that are not as radical, which is about valuing the women equally, such as, we changed our social media handles. So it was Lewis FC Men and Lewis FC Women. So it would be lovely if it was Man City Men and Man City Women. So it wasn't all default male.
Well, Tottenham do that. And I think a lot of other clubs are starting to do it. They have a generic one and they do have separate men's and women's social media feeds.
And it makes a massive difference. And we also, interesting to look at where people put the women's team on the men's, on the website. Is it behind, the under-18s boys, or is it just after the men? Is it, God forbid, right at the front? It's just, there are things you can do for free that send a signal out to everybody, not just women and girls, but boys and men, about women's place in football and therefore about women's place in society, because there's no doubt that what we do in football has a massive impact on the world,
And your book, Pitch Invasion, with a slight spelling mistake on the front.
Yeah.
I know that it's not a mistake. Is your journey through that?
Yes, exactly. No, it's not a mistake. I did want to call it Pitch Invasion, but apparently Amazon weren't too keen, so we went with Pitch Invasion, and we just put my lucky lipstick under P, because whenever I wear that lipstick, Lewis scores. To make it into Pitch Invasion.
What's the brand, just so other people know?
Charlie's a Torquay fan. He should definitely buy some of that lipstick. I think you could do with some lucky lipstick.
Lucky lipstick. Yeah.
It's called Copper Clutch, Charlie.
Okay, I'll look nice.
You look good in that. Copper
Clutch.
Copper Clutch is your colour. I've told you that before.
I think it is.
Yeah.
You are fan owned. Is that how you said mutuality? There is. You've got 2,500 owners in 40 countries. Is that how you are solely owned and it's run, Karen?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have, over 2,500 owners in many, many countries around the world. I think a lot. So it's 50 quid a year to own a football club. You can sign up on the website. But I think, a lot of the people that own Lewis are owning it because of the purpose and meaning behind it. So we not only pay the women the same as the men, we also campaign for an equal FA Cup prize, for example, which would really irrigate the women's game and give them many more resources. Because obviously what we haven't yet mentioned is why the women's game is developmentally behind the men's, which is really that massive ban that the FA Cup... Yeah. So, for 50 years and then for another 20 years, no extra resources were put in. So what we see now is, the women's game being at a much, less advanced level. So to equalise the FA Cup, which has that massive gender-based disparity, would really help women's teams up and down the country. It's all very well the Lionesses winning, but what about all the clubs that people need to go and watch and that need to look after their players,
Well, let's hope we see a spike feeding down the sort of food chain into the grassroots of women's football after the Lionesses' victory at the weekend. You can buy Pitch Invasion by Karen Dobray, and it's Octopus Books, and it's out in hardback now. Good to talk to you, Karen. Thanks very much.
Karen.
Thanks for having me.
There we are, Karen Dobray there from Lewis. Nice part of the world. You've been there?
Yeah, I've been. I've not been to the Dripping Pan. Okay. I've often wanted to go to the Dripping Pan. Maybe this is the year, Paul.
Yeah, I popped into the town. It's a nice little town.
Oh, is it?
Nice little spot. Yeah, very nice.